So I'm sure a lot of you are already aware, if you're watching this video, you understand what the Cranborne is and what it's intended to do. If not, I'm going to blast through this really quickly. So basically we've got two independent channels of harmonic saturation EQ. It's much more useful to think of this thing as a saturation box where you can control the bandwidth that you're saturating. It's very far removed from a traditional EQ. I wouldn't recommend getting this to do EQ moves to like shape a mix, but what it does do, there's not really much else on the market that does what this thing can do, and in such a fun and interesting way. So anyway, so we've got two independent channels. Each channel is just a 3-band EQ that has frequency select and cut or boost. You can drive into each of the channels with the input and you can attenuate the output. It also has two very smooth low pass and high pass filters on each channel. And we can go between dual mono, stereo, or mid-side function to get the channels to play with each other. We also have an insert. There's an insert on the back going from a TRS cable, so you can shove something on the insert of this box. So the big thing in hardware these days is digital recall. Yeah, it's great. One thing, let's say you dial in a setting, we've got a few cuts and a few boosts going on, we've got it in mid-side, we've got some filters as well happening. What I would love is when I load up a brand new session or even I just want to start from scratch, I would love if there was just a reset button. Just take me back to square one with this thing. I kind of find it just a bit time consuming. It's such a small gripe, but I just think there's an opportunity there for them to include, even if it's on the plugin, I would just love a button. And you could do this. You could save a preset where everything's set to 0, but it would just be if there's a button like, yeah, back to default. Send me back to default. Put everything back at 12 o'clock. Let me have another swing at that. That would save me a lot of time. I've just found, having done a lot of mastering in the last week, it would just save me quite a lot of time. But everything else has worked so well. Every session I've loaded up again, I've done a handful of revisions and it just loads up and it remembers the setting and it sits exactly where it was. Yeah, what a game changer. How cool. The one limitation of this that I'm like, oh God, it'd be really cool if I could do that, but it seems like I can't, is that the low and high bands of each channel of this EQ are shelves, which is cool. I like a shelf every now and again, but what I like much more than that is to be able to switch to a bell, especially for the low end. Saturation on bass, easy to overcook, but can also add just magic. With the shelf, it enables you to saturate that low end, and like the results are cool. And you'll hear in a minute, I'll do some sound demos. It's sick. Like the actual sound of the thing is awesome, but it's saturating everything below wherever I've set my frequency. So say I've set my frequency to like 100 hertz. That means 100 hertz and everything below that, all the way down to wherever my filter is set, or just down to 0, is being saturated. That whole low end's being saturated, which, if there's a bucket of stuff happening down low, like 40 hertz, if we've got just a ton of sub in there, I'm saturating the shit out of that and I can't tame it. I can't get the thump I'm looking for out of the kick, for instance, without also boosting the hell out of the subs. There's no way to control that. And I don't want to cut because then I'm going to lose those subs. Even though these filters are quite gentle, they're very smooth. And I have managed to get pretty creative sometimes where I've just added a little bit of cut, just like cut it up to sort of 25 hertz, something like that, so that I can get a bit more thump and rumble and warmth out of the kick and the sort of very low mids, without oversaturating the sub bass. But there was just a bell curve for that low end. Then I could just say, okay, cool, I just want to boost that section of the bass. If we could only have everything we wanted, that's something I would ask for. The same feature, a bell curve on the high band, would be equally as useful, especially because the high band is so wide. It goes all the way from 5K up to 25K. So being able to focus on a specific region, whether that's, I don't know, cymbals or a snare crack or just air out wide without getting fizz up high. It'd be really cool to be able to just focus in on one of those frequencies. Having selectable Q on this thing would also be a game changer. It has worked its way onto almost every mix that's come through the studio for the last fortnight. And every time I load up a project, it remembers my settings. So before I dropped coin on this thing, I watched every video in the world about it. I read every review. I just completely went to town. One of the things that I've found to be extremely true, which is you got to drive it. You got to lean into it with the input. That said, I didn't see too many videos that really showed me the character of the saturation in this box. It is a saturation box. It adds distortion. It adds harmonics. I found a lot of the videos I was watching were being very gentle, just giving it a little touch of a boost. And what I really wanted to hear and what I was really curious about was what this thing sounds like when it's just cooking, when it's pushed into oblivion. So I'm going to do a couple of samples in a minute, and we're going to have a listen to what this thing sounds like when it is given a swift punch to the jaw. I should also preface these sound samples. I'm not trying to make it sound good. I just want to give you an idea of what it sounds like. The character of the saturation in this box. So I want you to hear when it's pushed too far what that sounds like, because I didn't really have an idea. And every saturation box, every type of distortion has its own character, or at least it should. And I do find this one has a very interesting, very smooth, very pleasing character to it. So let's push it too far and let's find out how it sounds. Okay, so as mentioned, we're going to be just cooking this. So I thought I'd just start with this bass. And let's push it into oblivion. So that's saturating everything below 100 Hertz. Alright, we're maxed out now. Let's lean into it. Now without. That's our bass saturated. As I said, we can filter some of that low end out. Let's bring some of these mids in. See if we get some sizzle out of the high end of this bass. There we go. Wow. It's hectic. Alright. Let's bring everything back to normality here for a second. And let's also bring in the whole mix. Alright. Turn these filters off. Alright, so we're in stereo mode. Let's do the same thing. So let's boost that bass, saturate that low end. I mean, you can just hear it's so heavy duty. Let's lean into it. It's just slamming. Let's see if we can get it to open up. Boost our highs a bit. Alright, so as you can see, we're boosting from 5K and up. It's without. Goodness me. So there you have it. That's what this thing can do to your mix if you are a bit heavy-handed. Even with the low end just absolutely eating itself, boosting the highs somehow brought out texture, which is just, I don't know, it's really impressive. You can't do that with many of the other saturation boxes that I've used. So super impressive. Shout out to Cranborne for making something so fun and interesting and versatile. As I mentioned, those sound samples certainly weren't supposed to be pretty. I think there's plenty of examples on here of the Cranborne Carnaby in a mastering context. Not so much on a experimental mixing, having a bit of fun context. So hopefully you found that useful. Thanks again, Cranborne. Thanks also Sounds Easy for hooking me up. Really appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.